Welcome to the Brother Henry and You Show. I am your host, Henry Harris. Hello, welcome to the Brother Henry and You Show. I am your host, Henry Harris. Thank you so much for tuning in tonight. I'm so glad that you're tuning in. This is actually our first show of 2022, and I'm so honored that you give me the opportunity and the privilege to come and just share my heart with you. And looking forward to diving into some very relevant new episodes in 2022. I really believe it's going to benefit you greatly. So today I want to talk about loneliness. You know, I believe that we've all been there. All of us on one level or another have experienced loneliness in our lives. And to be quite frank with you, if you haven't, I always tell people to keep on living, because if you haven't experienced loneliness, it will most likely come. So today I want to just kind of talk about, maybe elaborate on what loneliness is and how to cope with it, because many of us experience it today. So I just want to first of all let you know that are watching today that it is absolutely normal to feel lonely. Loneliness causes one to feel not only isolated but disconnected. But the good news is that even though you may feel that way, it doesn't mean that you have to be cut off from the world or from other people or even from those that love you. You know, loneliness is always associated with being isolated, and sometimes it even makes you feel depressed. Loneliness comes in different phases in our lives. So when someone says they feel lonely, we shouldn't immediately judge them and think that they're coming from one particular perspective or another, because there could be various reasons why they feel the way they feel. But what's important is that we can be there for that person. Even in the midst of their loneliness, we can be there for them to give them some comfort and let them know that they are not by themselves. So let us define what loneliness means. Loneliness is the feeling of being alone regardless of the amount of social contact. It can also mean feeling sad, unhappy, and being socially isolated. I can't tell you how many times that I have personally experienced this in my life. And to be quite honest with you, it is a very unpleasant experience. How many of you right now that are watching can relate to that? You feel like you're in the wilderness all by yourself. You feel like, woe is me. I'm the only one that's suffering. I'm the only one that's alone. Let me tell you something. You're not the only one in the boat. There are several people that's in the boat with you. There are several people that's struggling just the way you are. But sometimes we just need some help. There's not really a lot of good help out there. We just need some good help and people to kind of guide us and navigate us and teach us the way as it relates to coping with loneliness. And that's why I'm doing it today. And hopefully it's a help to you. A person that experiences loneliness are often sad, unhappy, and socially isolated. Sometimes they can even be socially unavailable. When you feel alone, it can bring about all different types of emotions. And of course, at the other end of the spectrum, people can feel not only depressed, but they can even feel unmotivated and the emotional pain. Have you ever seen people who have experienced loneliness and they just seem unmotivated, don't want to do anything? There's a reason why many of this can be traced back to them experiencing loneliness. When you feel lonely, you do feel socially unavailable. You feel, as I mentioned right here, you feel socially isolated. You feel socially detached. And for some people, that's a choice. I want to mention this, and I don't think I even put this in my notes. Some people are actually okay with being alone. Some people don't want to be bothered. There's some people that live out in the country by themselves, don't want to be bothered with no one, don't be around other people. You know what? There's nothing wrong with that. But on the other end, there are other people too that experience loneliness on a different level. As I said earlier, it does come in different phases. If someone says they feel lonely, it is important that we discover why they feel the way they feel. Because you can assist them in some way, and maybe you can even help. Let me ask you a question. Have you experienced loneliness before? And how were you able to deal with it? How were you able to cope with it? For me, it was a very dark place in my life. And quite honestly, I still struggle in my life to this day with loneliness. It's not something I'm ashamed of. It's a part of the human experience. All of us feel lonely in our lives. All of us need some sort of attention. And as I mentioned in the beginning of the show, it is absolutely normal to feel this way. But I've also discovered this. While it is normal, while it is something that's unavoidable, at the same time, I don't have to live in that state of mind. I don't have to live in that state of mind of loneliness and being socially unavailable. If I feel like it's a choice for me to either I can stay there or either I can move on from that. So how was I able to cope with loneliness? Now, I'm going to mention a few things how I was able to cope with it. This may not connect with you. If it does, maybe some of these strategies that has helped me, maybe it can help you. But I want to share them with you today. When I realized that, number one, how I was able to cope with it or deal with loneliness is when I was able to realize that every human being longs and craves relationships or companionship. And that just simply means that the desire, the desire of being socially connected to someone is absolutely okay. But at the same time, connecting with others doesn't always remove the loneliness. It's absolutely normal to desire a marriage or a friendship or relationship because after all, we were not designed to be alone. Now I get what some of you may be hearing when I say that. This doesn't mean that everyone will end up in a great relationship. It doesn't mean that everyone's going to have that companionship that they long for in their life. It doesn't even mean that everyone is going to start, getting married. And someone to walk with you through that experience. But what it does mean that it is nice to have that companionship in your life or even someone to walk with you through that experience. Here goes another important question. What if I do that or pursue someone and still feel lonely? Well, here's the answer to that. Ultimately, pay attention to me, people. Ultimately, you should never connect with someone based on you being alone, solely being alone. If you're the type of person where, I need to connect with Bob or Sally, I need to find a woman, I need. No. Ultimately, you don't want to do that because let me tell you why. It is only a temporary fix. Somebody put that in the comment section. It's a temporary fix, but you will never feel complete. Why? Because, and we'll get to that in a second. Why? Because you're looking for something that you're not giving yourself. How many people seek these sort of connections and still end up feeling lonely? How many people marry because they feel so lonely and don't want to be by themselves or still feel isolated? People do it all the time. How many people that's in a relationship and they're still lonely? They got companionships, they live together, they got families together, and they still feel lonely. Loneliness is a personal issue. It's something that we all personally have to cope with and deal with in our lives. I don't believe there's one magic pill that fixes it. But however, I do believe that whatever works for that person will eventually work for that person. This happens quite a bit. And again, we were created for fellowship and connection. But there's another side to this as well that I believe that is quite often ignored. And that is, how often do we give ourselves what we give others? Which leads to number 2. What are you offering yourself? What are you offering yourself? You may say, well, what does that mean, Henry? This simply means that whatever you are looking for in another person, whether that's love, affection, validation, affirmation, acceptance, you have to learn how to embrace, watch this, your whole self. Right there in the comment section, say, I need to embrace my whole self. What do I mean embracing my whole self? This means for some of us, we need to learn how to do it. We need to learn how to love ourselves and like every part of you. Yes, even loneliness. If you can't spend quality time with yourself, if you can't like yourself, if you can't love yourself, if you can't start setting these standards for yourself, how is it that we have the audacity to look for that in other people when it is clear that we're not giving ourselves what we're looking for other people to do for us? It's time, I believe, we should ask ourselves that. How are you treating yourself today? How do you view yourself? What opinions do you have of yourself? When you're lonely, what do you do? How do you respond? Give yourself the kindness and respect that you would want from someone else. And don't always expect others to do it for you. Yes, I'm lonely in my life at times. But in those times in my life where I feel lonely, when I feel devastated, when I feel socially detached, when I feel socially isolated, when I feel socially unavailable, when I just don't want to be bothered, and loneliness has just kind of like taken over me. In those moments when I feel that way, yes, at times I crave relationship, I crave companionship, I crave this and that. But at the same time, I go within myself and I say these words. I have learned to embrace my whole self. Folks may say, well, that's just conceited. That's not conceited and that's not prideful. It is absolutely okay to love yourself, the person that God has created you to be. And you should know that today, that you are unique. There's no one like you in the whole world. Think about that. There's no one like you. Be yourself. Love yourself. Whatever you're looking for in other people, ask yourself, am I treating myself good? Sometimes we need to take ourselves on a date. Sometimes we need to take ourselves, sometimes I go out in my car and I just ride around. And just checking out nature, or I'll go by and do a little window shopping. Sometimes it's good to, and I'm not saying, detach yourself from people. It's absolutely okay to, if you feel like you need to do that. But we need each other too, and that's very important. So how you treat yourself, how you feel about yourself is very vital in overcoming loneliness. Don't sit around telling yourself that things would never change. Do whatever you have to do to cope with it. Always remember that you are not the only one that's going through loneliness. Many of us are there, and many of us are even going through it even as I speak. Lastly, don't be ashamed to reach out to someone. I know so many people that are so ashamed to reach. They're lonely and they just don't know who to talk to, who to reach out to. If you are feeling desperate and loneliness has gotten the best of you, let someone know that you are struggling. It's the first step in acknowledging loneliness and doing something about it. You have to acknowledge it. It is perfectly okay and fine to tell someone, I'm lonely. Can we meet up for lunch? Can we have some coffee? Can we even go see a movie? Can I call you? Coping with loneliness, there's, like I said earlier, there's really no specific cure. There are many ways we can cope with it, and not only cope with it, but also we can overcome it. When I find myself feeling lonely, what I typically do is I call a friend or meet up with someone for lunch. This gives me the space to share in a safe setting about my emotions and how I am feeling. Because I get it, loneliness can be overwhelming, but never feel like you can't reach out to someone. Sometimes to understand what is under the surface of those feelings or how I'm feeling, it is vitally important to reach out to someone. That is very important. Today, if you find yourself feeling lonely, I want you to remember this, that you are not alone. We're there with you. We know what you're feeling. We can all identify with those emotions because we've been there. Even if you feel that way, you are not in the wilderness by yourself. Remember to embrace who you are. What did I say earlier? Your whole self. And always know that you were created for fellowship. You were created and designed for connection. Reach out to someone today, because just as I love you and appreciate you, I'm sure there are so many other people that do. Thank you for watching today's program. We'll see you next week. Take a minute to share this video. Hit the like button. Comment. Let me know your thoughts. How do you cope with loneliness? What do you do about it? God bless you, and I'll see you next week.
We hope you have enjoyed today's program. We want to connect with you. Visit us at facebook.com/The Brother Henry and You Show, or visit us on our YouTube channel at youtube.com/Henry Harris 100. We're so grateful you tuned in today and hope you have a fantastic day.